This has been a very productive and successful visit to both Australia and New Zealand. Both countries are our closest and most trusted partners. They have been with us from the very beginning in our early years of nation building, and they continue to be close friends who share our values and vision for the future. Both countries are natural partners to Singapore because we have such great alignment in our strategic outlook and perspectives of the world. We both want an open, rules-based global system. We both believe in win-win cooperation rather than zero-sum competition, and in building bridges rather than walls. And we have shown that by working together, smaller countries can have an outsized impact on the world by working with purpose, conviction, and unity. And in this visit, we have set ambitious agendas for both countries to really strengthen our cooperation and partnership across multiple fronts. And I believe that by implementing these initiatives over the next 10 years, we will be able to strengthen our resilience, create more opportunities for our peoples, and navigate this uncertain and unpredictable world ahead of us with greater confidence, with partners like them.
So how do these two CSPs fit into Singapore's larger strategy of maintaining good ties? Because as you said in your S. Rajaratnam lecture, we're looking to our trusted partners around the world and strengthening our bilateral relationships, how to make them fit for purpose. Could you speak a little bit more about the timeliness of the upgrading of each of the partnerships as well?
They are important because we are indeed in a world that is more uncertain, where the anchors that hold together the rules-based order are coming apart. And therefore, we have to look for like-minded countries to work closely together. Of course, in Asia, our first instinct, correctly, is to look at our neighbors and ASEAN. And that's what we are doing. We are strengthening ASEAN integration. We often, in Asia, also talk about the two giants of China and India, and then we talk about the other major countries like Japan and Korea. But we should include Australia and New Zealand in the mix. We should not forget them. Both Australia and New Zealand are open, advanced economies with many complementarities with Singapore in trade, innovation, connectivity, and sustainability, for example. So there is a lot that we can do together by harmonizing standards, streamlining business processes, bringing our business communities closer together, and then setting new and more ambitious standards, for example, in digital trade, in the green economy, or in new fields like artificial intelligence. So these are all ways in which Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore can, even in this uncertain environment, create for ourselves frameworks that are important, which may even set new standards for the rest to follow, and can ensure within Asia an open and inclusive framework for cooperation with all the key partners. And that's very much in our interest, because we've always said that we want a region that's not dominated by any single power, that rejects zero-sum competition, that continues to engage all the major powers. So our cooperation in this new environment, it should never be limited to just countries within the region alone. We don't want a world that's going to be ending up in competing spheres of influence or exclusive blocs. We want a region that's open and inclusive, and our cooperation with Australia and New Zealand very much enables that.
PM, we have seen two partnerships being elevated on this trip, right? So beyond the fancy titles and the names.
Not very fancy titles. Yeah.
The jargon. What do these strengthened ties actually mean for everyday Singaporeans?
Sure.
What tangible benefits do they bring, and do you have any examples to share?
Sure. we have different types of partnerships with different countries, but we take these partnerships very seriously. And in fact, we don't have that many comprehensive strategic partnerships. When we elevate a relationship to a CSP or a comprehensive strategic partnership, we want to make sure that there is substance in the relationship. And indeed, there has been substance in the relationship with Australia. We've had the CSP for 10 years, upgrading it now, and we are now upgrading the relationship with New Zealand to also a CSP. Having such a strategic partnership will certainly bring tangible benefits for our peoples. It can come in the form of more opportunities because there will be more trade and investment flows, more investments into Singapore that will create more jobs for Singaporeans. It can come in other indirect ways. For example, with New Zealand, we are talking about an agreement for essential supplies, and with Australia similarly, not yet a binding agreement, but an MOU. And these sorts of agreements will help Singapore and Singaporeans because in times of crisis, in times of disruptions, we can be assured of essential supplies like food coming through Singapore and coming to Singaporeans. So these are all concrete ways in which we will benefit. And I'm sure, I have no doubt, the many initiatives that we have put in place in both New Zealand and Australia, as we work through them and implement them, we can look forward to many more benefits for our businesses as well as our workers.
So, your visit to Australia and New Zealand, how does this shape up Singapore's expectations and priority at the upcoming ASEAN and APEC summit?
One of the things that we have been discussing with both Australia and New Zealand is to not only strengthen our bilateral partnership, but to get both Australia and New Zealand to strengthen their engagement with Southeast Asia. Both countries see it as a strategic priority to do so anyway, because, as I said, they have a similar strategic outlook of the world. They regard their future and destiny as being in Asia. And so they want to be more engaged in Asia, and within Asia, they don't just want to engage powers like China and India. They see ASEAN as a very important pillar and grouping to engage, and they want to be more engaged with ASEAN. So Singapore can be that bridge and that springboard and gateway for them to engage ASEAN more intensively. And we are doing so, and we have plans to do so. So that's part of our cooperation, which will enable ASEAN to be, again, more effective in engaging different powers, enable ASEAN to be an open, inclusive region that can be a forum where all the different powers have stakes, and we can enhance cooperation in a sort of in different directions. So that has always been our interest, and the engagements we have with Australia and New Zealand will facilitate that. We are also preparing for our ASEAN chairmanship in 2027, and both Australia and New Zealand are keen to work with us to prepare for that. In New Zealand in particular, as I mentioned earlier today, is going to be chair of the Pacific Islands Forum in 2027 too. So that's yet another opportunity for us to bring the two groupings closer together, ASEAN and the Pacific Island Forums, the Pacific Islands. Because as I go back to the starting point, we want ASEAN to have multiple engagements, to have active engagements all over in many, many different directions. And if we understand the strategic imperative for doing so, then all of these different engagements that we are teeing up, whether it's with the Pacific Island states, whether it's with Australia or New Zealand, or even with the EU, which we have been discussing, all these will help fulfill our broader strategic objective. Yeah, sure.
So, how could having this also pave the way for more CSP 2.0s? Are we looking at the current pool of countries that we already have CSP with? And what are the considerations for us to then upgrade it to a CSP criteria?
We are always doing that. The relations are never static. They are always evolving and improving as far as possible. And each time we look at a relationship, we are looking to see if it can be elevated to a higher level. Basically, which means we want to do more and go deeper. And that applies in multiple fields, be it defense, economics, climate change, technology, so many different areas. And if the relationship is very substantial, then it deserves an upgrade. If it's already an existing partner, CSP, which we have with a few countries, and perhaps the initiatives are already mature, then it's time to look at how we can refresh the initiatives to have a new round of upgraded initiatives, as we are doing for Australia. And we do that continually with all the different countries we engage.
Sorry. So perhaps a follow-up question to your answer to Glenn about the everyday Singaporeans. How does the government plan to communicate the value of such partnerships, which are very high level, to in terms of in bread and butter terms, to the issues they're concerned about, like cost of living, jobs, things like that?
The main communication we do as a very first step really are the businesses, because the businesses need to understand the opportunities there are through free trade agreements, through investment agreements, through green economy partnerships. The key beneficiaries in the first instance in many of these arrangements are businesses. They can either do more in overseas, which we want them to do and they have to do in order to be successful, or we may attract businesses into Singapore, which will eventually lead to more jobs. So that's the first line of engagement, if you will. Beyond that, as far as the most Singaporeans are concerned, the information will be there. We will update, let people know. But I think for most people, they may not be prepared or interested to go into all the details of every single agreement. But what matters more, I would imagine, to most Singaporeans would be that my life is getting better, that there are jobs available, that prices are affordable. So it's not about the specifics and the technicalities, but the concrete outcomes. So all that we are pursuing are means to an end, let's be clear. All right? So rather than dwell on the means, we want to be able to achieve concrete actions which will lead to eventually better outcomes for Singaporeans, which they will certainly experience.
And regarding your earlier post on Gaza,
Yeah.
the ceasefire agreement, specifically how will Singapore be stepping up efforts and contributing where we can? Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Sure. On Gaza, first of all, I would say American leadership, and in particular the leadership of President Trump, is and was vital in getting us to where we are today. Because the only country in the world is America that has that ability to apply leverage and pressure on all the different parties, not just Israel and Hamas, but the Palestinian Authority and the other Arab states, for example, to come together and agree on a peace deal. So that's important. And it's good that we have come to this stage, this first stage, but this is only just the beginning. There's still a lot more work to be done. For example, part of the peace plan included Hamas disarming itself and a transitional governance structure for Gaza. These are complex steps to take. And eventually, of course, we also must ensure a clear path for Palestinian statehood as part of a negotiated two-state solution where both Palestinians and Israelis can enjoy lasting peace and security. These are all very complex issues, long-standing issues with a lot of history to it. Many attempts have been tried to resolve these issues in the past. They have failed. But we must never give up. And we must keep trying. And continued American involvement and engagement remains vital in this roadmap towards a two-state solution. Just as American involvement was critical in getting us to where we are now, continued American engagement will be vital in continued progress on this roadmap. But meanwhile, of course, we are encouraged by where we are today. There is a lot of work to be done, particularly if the peace holds and the next steps are taken in the rebuilding of Gaza. You can imagine a huge, tremendous efforts are needed to rebuild Gaza. And we will certainly look forward to doing our part in this process. We have already leaned forward and stepped up a lot of capacity building programs for Palestinian officials, including scholarships for them. What will entail in the next steps, it's still not clear today because we still don't know what will be the governance structure, what will be the next steps for rebuilding, but we have very good relations with the Palestinian Authority. We will continue to be in touch with them, with Americans and other key players in this process to see how Singapore can play a helpful role.